think pediatric anxiety is primarily psychological. They think it's personality, parenting, school stress. And while those factors can absolutely contribute, they don't fully explain what we're seeing in many children today. Because in a growing number of cases, what looks like anxiety is actually a nervous system that is stuck in a state of physiological alarm. Today, I want to walk you through pediatric anxiety from a brain and autonomic nervous system perspective. Not to dismiss psychology, not to dismiss therapy, but to add a layer of physiology that many parents are never really taught to consider. When you understand the physiology, your strategy ultimately changes. So let's start here. Let's start with the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system runs automatically. It regulates heart rate, breathing, digestion, immune activities, sleep cycles, and most importantly for this conversation, stress response. It has two primary branches, the sympathetic system, which activates fight or flight, and the parasympathetic system, which promotes regulation, recovery, and safety. In a well-regulated child, these systems shift fluidly. Stress happens, the body activates. Then the system returns to baseline. But when the system struggles to return to baseline, sympathetic tone remains elevated. Over time, this begins to shift physiology. Cortisol patterns change, heart rate variability decreases, sleep architecture fragments, digestive motility alters, sensory thresholds drop. The child becomes far more reactive. Research has shown that children with anxiety disorders often demonstrate reduced heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is one measure of vagal tone, the nervous system's ability to shift into parasympathetic regulation. Lower vagal tone is directly associated with difficulty calming after stress. We also see literature linking chronic stress physiology with increased limbic system activation, particularly in an area of the brain called the amygdala. And emerging research suggests that inflammatory signaling can influence neurotransmitter balance in ways that increase vigilance and hyperreactivity. So when we talk about pediatric anxiety, we are often talking about measurable physiological patterns, not simply thoughts. So let's talk next about the brainstem and the cortex. The brainstem handles survival. The cortex handles reasoning, planning, and executive control. When the nervous system is well regulated, the cortex leads. When the nervous system is dysregulated, the brainstem dominates. And when survival circuitry is leading, logic doesn't calm it. You can reassure, you can explain, you can reason, but if the body feels unsafe, the reaction will ultimately override the explanation. I often explain it in this manner. The nervous system is kind of like a smoke alarm. If it's calibrated correctly, it alerts us ultimately to danger. But if it becomes hypersensitive, it goes off then when you burn toast or when someone opens the oven. In many anxious children, the alarm system is very, very much overly sensitive. The goal isn't to remove the alarm, it's to recalibrate it. In a conventional care system, anxiety is diagnosed through symptom patterns. Therapy can help oftentimes develop coping strategies. Medicine can sometimes reduce symptom intensity. Those approaches can be appropriate, but they primarily focus only on managing the response. The deeper physiological question is, why is the system interpreting normal life as a threat? In clinical practice, children present with anxiety often are demonstrating things like sleep disruption, digestive instability, emotional volatility, sometimes motor tics, sometimes immune irregularities. These systems are not random. They are all regulated by the autonomic nervous system. When regulation improves, anxiety often decreases in intensity, even before cognitive strategies are introduced. See, regulation is not suppression, it is stabilization. Improving sleep quality, supporting gut-brain communication, enhancing vagal tone, reducing chronic sympathetic dominance. In neurologically focused chiropractic care, like what we do here in our office, the objective is not to treat anxiety directly. It is to improve nervous system adaptability. When adaptability improves, resilience improves, and anxiety often decreases as a secondary effect. So if your child struggles with anxiety, I want you to understand something clearly. Your child's not broken, they're not weak, and this is not simply a willpower issue. In many cases, their nervous system is working very hard to protect them. The question is not only how do we calm their thoughts, it may be why is their nervous system on high alert in the first place? And when you shift that question, your entire strategy needs to shift. It shifts from managing symptoms to restoring regulation.